It's time to take 5. Now you know.
It has been reported that the third leading cause of death in our country, behind cancer and heart disease, is due to medical malpractice. With us today is Jordan Dulcie of the law firm of Searcy Denney, who is going to tell us what you need to do if you suspect that you or a loved one is not getting the proper care from a medical professional. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you, Candy, so much for having me.
So if you suspect that a loved one has been harmed by medical malpractice, what is the first thing you should do?
Going to the hospital setting or getting medical care is always an uneasy time. It can be scary for many family members, especially when you have a loved one in the hospital. So it's very important that there's an advocate there to speak on behalf of the patient or family member who may not be in a position to do so. Advocating on behalf of the patient can really be helpful to the doctors and physicians who are treating the patient because they may not be as familiar with the medical history, the symptoms and signs that family members may be more accustomed to seeing over the course of that family member's life. So it's very important that you are there sharing information with the healthcare providers, because more information to them can really help direct the type of care they provide to the patient.
And as the advocate, what can you do to document the various aspects of the patient's condition that may be results of medical malpractice?
That's a great question. So one of the most important things you can do in that setting to help an investigator later on or an attorney looking into a potential malpractice case is to document the condition of the patient. The best way to do that is with photos or videos when you're seeing the patient in the hospital room, because that can really show the type of treatment, the type of monitoring that is being provided that otherwise may not be seen through the medical records later on.
And what should you do to document the interactions that he or she has with the medical care professionals?
In any hospital setting, there's going to be a lot of different healthcare providers coming in and out of the hospital room, speaking with you, talking about the case, and trying to figure out the best approach to care for the patient. It's important when you have those opportunities to speak with the healthcare providers that you document those conversations and even try to get the name of the specialist and their type of specialty, so later on you can go on and determine what exactly was going on, who was saying what, because those conversations, again, aren't always reflected in the medical records. In addition to getting the names of the specialists, it provides you another avenue later on to look up exactly the performance history of these providers and whether or not any of them have been involved in any litigation or lawsuits. If you visit the Department of Health website, it allows you to look at the history of the providers, when they were licensed, if there's been any malpractice cases against them, and if any resolved negatively against those providers. And it gives you, again, more information to find out exactly who is treating your family member.
What else do you need to include to preserve accurate medical records?
When a loved one is done with their hospital stay, they will ultimately be discharged. And once a discharge happens, the entire medical chart will be available for anyone to see, especially the family members and the patient themselves. So getting the medical records along with any important imaging studies, radiographical studies, is very important to get that as early as possible, because that information is vital to any investigation later on to a medical malpractice claim. And by ensuring you're getting the records early on, you can also make sure that all the information that you saw during the hospital stay is included in those records. And it also can be given to the attorney or investigator to jumpstart their investigation without the time needed to request records, which can often take several weeks to do.
Why is it important for someone who suspects medical malpractice to seek legal advice?
So in Florida, there's a lot of very strict guidelines to bringing a medical malpractice claim and eventual lawsuit in court. So it's very important that you seek legal representation as soon as possible to allow an attorney to start the investigatory process, which can sometimes take many months to do. In Florida, the most important thing to remember is there's only 2 years to bring a medical malpractice claim. And that 2 years can go by very quickly, and sometimes you don't suspect medical malpractice until maybe many months after the hospital stay. So the sooner you seek legal representation, the sooner an attorney can investigate your case. And if you have the medical records and documentation, it allows the attorney to do that process much more quickly.
Thank you so much, Jordan.
Thank you, Candy.
If you have any questions about your rights and medical malpractice, just visit searcylaw.com.